American soldiers found a train of death. This is what happened next. April 29, 1945. A Sunday morning. The sky was gray. The air was cold. U.S. 45th Infantry Division soldiers, the Thunderbirds, were pushing towards a large complex near Munich. They thought they were attacking a supply depot, or maybe a factory. They had no idea they were walking into a nightmare. They reached a railroad track outside the complex. A train sat there. 39 cattle cars. Silent. Motionless. The soldiers approached. They smelled it before they saw it. A lieutenant peeked into a car and screamed. Inside were bodies, thousands of them. Men, women, children, starved, beaten, stacked like garbage. Left there to die of thirst and exposure. Some bodies had bite marks, the living had tried to eat the dead to survive. The American soldiers were veterans. They'd fought in Italy. They'd fought in France. They'd seen friends blown apart, but never this. One soldier, a tough 19-year-old from Oklahoma, sat in the snow and cried uncontrollably. Another soldier vomited. But for most, sadness quickly turned to something else. Rage. A cold, shaking, murderous rage. They looked at the SS watchtowers in the distance. They tightened their grip on their rifles. In that moment, the rules of war vanished. The Geneva Convention no longer mattered. Only revenge mattered. This is the true story of the Dachau liberation reprisals, the day American soldiers snapped, the day they lined up SS guards against a wall, and the day General Patton decided that sometimes murder is justice. The men of the 45th Infantry Division weren't murderers. They were farm boys, factory workers, students. They were the liberators. Before April 29th. They had a reputation for being professional. They took prisoners. They treated the wounded. But Dachau changed them instantly. Lieutenant Colonel Felix Sparks was the commander on the ground. He tried to control them. He shouted orders, keep moving, don't look at the train. But you couldn't not look. There were 2,300 bodies on that train. The soldiers walked past. They saw the eyes of the dead staring. They saw the skeletons. Private John Lee later said, "We were mad. So mad we wanted to kill every German in the world." They reached the camp's main gate. The SS guards were still there. Commandant Martin Weiss had fled, but left a young lieutenant, Heinrich Wicker, and about 500 SS men. Wicker knew the war was over. He wanted to surrender. He put on his best uniform, polished his boots, walked out with a white flag. He expected to be treated as an officer. Expected a salute. Expected respect. He approached the Americans and said, "I surrender this camp to the United States Army." An American officer looked at the clean, well-fed Nazi. Then he looked at the pile of starving corpses behind him. He spat in the German's face. The surrender didn't go as planned. The Americans entered the camp. Chaos erupted. Prisoners saw the Americans. 30,000 skeletons rushed the fences, screaming with joy. Crying, "Americans! Americans!" But while prisoners cheered, soldiers hunted. A group of SS guards tried to surrender near a coal yard. Hands up. Shouting. "Hitler kaputt. Hitler is finished." They thought this phrase would save them. It didn't. An American lieutenant, believed to be Lieutenant Jack Bushyhead, a Native American officer, watched them. He was shaking. He'd just seen the crematorium. The oven still full of human ash. He looked at the SS guard, healthy, arrogant. He looked at his men. No verbal order. Just a gesture with his Thompson submachine gun. Line them up. The Germans were confused. They lined up against a brick wall, about 50. Panic set in. 9. Geneva Convention, one shouted. An American machine gunner, nicknamed Bird Eye, set up his .30 caliber machine gun on a tripod, metal clicking. He looked at the lieutenant. The lieutenant nodded. Massive, sustained machine gun fire, screaming. It lasted about 10 seconds. When the smoke cleared, the SS guards were on the ground. Most dead. Some twitching. Snow black with coal dust and red with blood. Lieutenant Colonel Sparks heard the shooting. He ran over. Saw his men firing into the bodies. Pulled out his pistol, fired into the air. "Stop it," he screamed. "Stop it. What the hell are you doing?" he shouted. The gunner looked at him. Eyes blank. Not sorry. Crying. "Colonel," he cried, "they deserved it." That wasn't the only incident. It was happening everywhere. At Tower B, SS guards tried to surrender. Climbed down a ladder, hands up. American soldiers didn't. Wait. Shot them off the ladder. Fire, fire, fire. Bodies fell into the moat. Americans then walked to the edge and emptied magazines into the water, just to be sure. One GI later wrote home, "It wasn't war. It was an execution, and I didn't feel a thing. After what I saw in those boxcars, they weren't human to me anymore." But Americans weren't the only ones killing. The prisoners, the victims, wanted their turn. Somehow, prisoners got out of the barracks. They were weak. Barely walking. But they had adrenaline. They found an SS guard hiding in a watchtower. Dragged him down. They didn't have guns. They had shovels. Sticks. Their bare hands. American soldiers stood by, watching. Smoking cigarettes. An officer asked, "Should we stop them?" A sergeant replied, "No, let them finish." The prisoners beat the guard to death. Tore him apart. It was primal. Savage. Justice. Elsewhere in the camp, prisoners found a German capo, a prisoner who worked for the Nazis and beat others. They drowned him in a latrine. For 1 hour, Dachau was a lawless zone. Victims became judges, juries, executioners, and the U.S. Army looked away. Eventually, order was restored. Lieutenant Colonel Sparks stopped the killing. Locked up surviving Germans to save them from his men. But the secret couldn't be kept forever. Photos had been taken. Photos of American soldiers over executed Germans. Photos of the Coal Yard Massacre. A few days later, an investigative team arrived, led by Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Whitaker. They interviewed soldiers. Collected photos. Wrote a report, investigation of alleged mistreatment of German guards at Dachau. The report was damning. Concluded American troops violated international law. Recommended court-martials. Recommended the heroes of Dachau be treated as criminals. The report went up the chain of command. Landed on General George S. Patton's desk. Patton read the report. Looked at photos of dead SS guards. Looked at photos of the death train. Patton was a strict disciplinarian. Usually punished soldiers for unpolished boots. But this was different. Patton knew what his men had seen. Knew the SS were monsters. Called the SS the slime of the earth. Summoned the investigating officer. Held up the report. "What is this garbage?" The officer said, "Sir, it is on a train, and you expect my boys to follow the rule book?" "Hell no." Patton reportedly said, "On a train, and you think my lads will play by the rules?" "Absolutely not." Patton apparently said. These men were stressed. They had itchy trigger fingers. It happens in war. Then he did something legendary. He refused to sign the court-martial papers. He took the report and burned it. Or, some sources say, he ordered it buried in the deepest top-secret file, never to be opened. He told his staff, "There will be no trial. The SS got what they deserved." Dismissed. Supreme Commander Eisenhower agreed. He saw the photos of the death train. He realized putting American heroes on trial for killing Nazi monsters would destroy morale. So the order came down, quashed the investigation. The charges were dropped. Lieutenant Jack Bushyhead, who ordered the shooting, went home to Oklahoma. He never talked about it. He died in 1977, a silent hero with a dark secret. The Dachau reprisals are still controversial today. Neo-Nazis use it to say, look, the Americans were bad too. But historians see it differently. It wasn't a planned genocide. It was a human reaction. The snap of the mind when faced with pure evil. When you see a child starve, a room full of bodies, can you stay a professional soldier, or do you become an avenger? The soldiers of the 45th Division made their choice. They chose vengeance, and General Patton chose to protect them. Today, there's a memorial at Dachau. It honors the 30,000 camp victims. But not the 50 SS guards shot against the wall. Their bodies were buried in unmarked graves, forgotten. History has judged them. They were the architects of hell, and on April 29, 1945, they met the devil. As for the American soldiers, they carried the memory of the death train their whole lives. They tried to forget the shooting, but never regretted it. One veteran said years later, "I know killing prisoners is wrong, but that day, in that place, it felt like the only right thing to do." This is war's hardest question. If you'd seen the death train, would you have pulled the trigger?